Now, therapy. I've just said to you, I don't like to use the word therapy. Is it a tradition or a technology? So therapy, is it a tradition or technology? Anybody wants to say anything to that? Because currently, wherever I go, therapy has become some form of technology. But when you return therapy to your grandmothers, it is tradition. What is it about tradition that is therapy? So really, it is a tradition. It is as old as mankind. It's very common practice now to go for training for 2 years, pay loads and loads of money, become a therapist, and then mint money again. That is not therapy. That is industry. So I was talking to my friend, Mrs. Guha, last night, that education has become an industry. Therapy is also a mega industry. So beware, all of you who want to be therapists, stay away from technique. Try and connect to tradition. Reference to healing through words appeared in the Greek and Egyptian writings almost in the Vedic times. So it's remedy, cure, treatment intended to relieve and or heal. I'll tell you a small story about this, and it connects to the movement, Shruti's movement talk. So I was very young. My marriage was falling apart. I had a little toddler in my arms, and I was writing my thesis. So something happened, and I'm falling apart. So I phoned my friend, the writer of this, and said to him, I'm feeling this way. I can't cope. And there I was crying. And I'm in the UK, in London, and he's here in Assam. So he says to me, get up and go to the fridge. So I get up and move to the fridge, talking about tradition. Open the fridge. I open the fridge. What do you have? 1 egg. What else do you have? 2 dried mushrooms. Right, make an omelette. And he put the phone down on me. Now, because of maybe love, maybe respect, because he used to be my teacher at one point in life, I decided if I make an omelette, I might feel better. And I proceeded with making this omelette. And I actually did feel better. So there was a movement from this feeling of utter helplessness, unholding, breaking apart, to collecting myself, getting to the fridge, but somebody was helping me do that. Somebody I love. That is why the word love is very important. And somebody who could play with me and say to me, get up, go to the fridge, make an omelette, bang the phone down. Do you see? So that is very important. Can I have the next slide, please? Is the next slide happening? So these are the questions I would like all of you who are aspiring therapists to ask yourselves. How did it come about that therapy became the domain of modern day professionals? How did it come to be that therapy struts about these days in a monopolist, or is it manipulist mode? How do you hand over your entire life to this one person who doesn't know you from Adam? Do you see? There is a quality of manipulation there. The therapy god in his imperialist condo, usually in America, Vienna, Hampstead Heath, is getting globalized. Wherever I go now, people say to me, oh, all of CBT loyaho, which means let me go and get some CBT. And I'm supposed to be suitably impressed, but I always say a cup of tea will do you much better than any daft CBT. I don't knock CBT, it does work. If you have dog phobia, if you have spider phobia, to some extent, I think the behavioral element of CBT works, but CBT works better if your therapist is a kind, compassionate, mindful person who is able to utilize the beauty of what is there in cognitive thinking in the relationship. If it is used as a technique, it really does not work. So therapy as an industry, it is lucrative. Big pharma and therapy. How many people here are aware of the big pharma problem? So you've got treatment-resistant depression. You go to your GP, you will get prescribed whole lot of antidepressants which will give you metabolic syndrome, and usually women will often suffer from domestic violence or sexual abuse and get the label of treatment-resistant depression, which gives them all sorts of iatrogenic conditions, and the depression doesn't go away. Of course it doesn't. You need to talk to your grandmother if you have one, or your therapist, or maybe your dog, but you need to be able to express. So there is a lot of promotion of antidepressants. Lucy Johnston has written on, Joanna Moncrief has written on this, that what we do is we medicalize misery. We are miserable for so many different reasons. And then it gets medicalized, and then big industrialists, which are fairly patriarchal, will make a lot of profit out of our sorrow. So it is important to take matters in your own hands, and that is why organizations like Red Door are very central, and we must support them. If I can have the next slide, please. We will miss this slide. Again, we can miss this slide. We can miss this slide. Now, when we talk about therapy, we also talk about diagnosis, whether it is schizophrenia, whether it is depression, bipolar. Nowadays, there is personality disorder. How can somebody's personality be disordered? One of my, I say patient friend. Patient as in somebody who has had to be very patient with the world. The world has been unkind to them. Life is random. So I always say patient friend. The person who has to be patient. So he says to me, Dr. M, they say my personality is disordered. What's wrong with my personality? How can my personality be disordered? It's very rude that they should say that my personality is disordered. And I agreed with him. It is not right. Diagnosis, I think we like diagnosis. We like CBT, we like depression, we like schizophrenia, we like all these labels, not because we are silly or stupid, but because as humans we are constantly trying to organize information about the world in meaningful ways. So as soon as I know this is schizophrenia, I think there is a solution, right? So it's our natural tendency to organize our experiences into language that we can articulate. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's when something is imposed on us, that is where the trouble starts. So if we can have the next slide, please. So now, diagnosis is not so straightforward. Calling something something is not so simple. So for example, I don't know if you know that Samuel Cartwright invented the psychological disorder called drapetomania. How many people know about this? Drapetomania was an illness, so-called, to describe the phenomena which caused black enslaved folks to run away from bondage. This was before the Civil War. Now this became an illness. And the treatment was people were brought back and they were put into these water tanks, and you see? Now you wouldn't believe it these days, would you? His understanding was that the malady was the consequence of masters who made themselves too familiar with slaves and treated them as equals. So they then got drapetomania and they decided, they made movements to run away. So that's not that long ago. The next slide will tell you, if we can have the next slide. You know, with sexual orientation disorder, if you remember this, not so long ago it was in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual as a disorder. Then I think people began, there was activism, and as a result of activism, they de-emphasized, there was a de-emphasis on the disorder bit, and it got removed from the DSM. So that did not happen because medics and big pharma and psychologists were somehow enlightened, became enlightened. It happened because gay pride movement, activism, forced people to back off from defining minority experience, if you like. I don't even like that minority, different experience as disorder. So that is the work of activism. That is activism. If we can have the next slide. So this is interesting. DSM-5 notes that cultural norms have an impact on what is considered pathological, and as norms shifted during the gay rights movement, so did the conceptualization of homosexuality. The level of functional impairment attributed to sexuality decreased as society became more accepting. But this does not explain why there was same-sex relationships in the early days in the ancient Greek times. It doesn't explain this. So DSM is looking for an exit there. So I don't sort of give that too much credit.
Dr. Mayuri, may I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
What does this have to do with taking therapy back to the country?
Brilliant question. What I'm trying to say to you is that organizing human experience, it may be distressing, it may be different, but organizing it into medical paradigm actually creates additional difficulties for the person receiving this diagnosis. You see? So using the idea of grandmother is to use the idea of what we call genuine curiosity. You become curious about the experience. I'm hearing voices of Mother Goddess talking to me through the 4th floor window, and she has inserted some microchip on the left, under the left lobe of my ear, blah, 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 blah. Now, if you call it schizophrenia, you will immediately prescribe risperidone. But if you begin to ask this lady, like perhaps your grandmother would, what's happening to you? What's going on for you? Where is it? Now, I'm tempted to tell you a story. This man, young man, comes to me and says to me this exactly the same thing. I've got a microchip inserted on my elbow. I was very young those days. And I hadn't worked that much with psychosis. So I'm thinking, microchip insert, this is bizarre. But there's something in me about, I don't know, I felt love for this poor man suffering so much, and I felt ashamed as an Assamese girl to condemn him and objectify him, because we don't do that. We didn't do that in Assam in those days. We kind of would accept what is different. We would look away. So in the act of looking away, I did ask him, where is this microchip? He's telling me all these things. In the evening, I telephoned my friend Rufus May, who Aparna was mentioning, and I said to him, what do I do with this? Somebody's telling me this. Clearly there's no microchip inserted on his elbow, but this is what he's telling me. Rufus says to me, does he live in a high-rise flat? I said, yes. Does he have neighbors living next door to him with little children? I said, yes. Does he have the community mental health team visiting him every week? I said, yes. And I said to Rufus, how do you know all this? Rufus says to me that he's feeling scrutinized. He's feeling watched by the world. He's a young black man. The white social worker comes with her diary under her arms to visit him. That's certainly not his grandmother. Neighbors know that this strange young person is here, and everybody, probably when they meet him on the lift or wherever, there is an exchange, one of suspicion, not of love or playfulness. One of, you are the one who might harm my kids. So his original paranoia becomes compounded into a way of life where he then creates secondary matrices of, you know, the world is after me. Does that answer your question? Do you see? So by grandmother, what I mean is returning to the wisdom of, the original wisdom of curiosity. That's what I mean. So let's have the next slide. I think we should give that a miss. So what should we do? What should we do if we don't diagnose, if we don't want to call it schizophrenia, if there are no grandmothers about anymore, what should we do? What do you think we should do? Could I have a few answers? What should we do when we are faced with the person in distress or even psychotic in front of us? And I'm saying to you, conventional therapy is not always the only answer. It does give you some answers, but it's not the only answer. What should you do? Any suggestions from the group? Train people in communities.
So they should be able to treat their people around their loved ones, and yeah, they could help them better.
Absolutely brilliant answer. It's, because we have lost our collective ways of being, we've lost tradition. There are no elders who can pass down knowledge of how to be in situations of distress to the young. So you go to your therapist, who then tells you, you have this, that, and you need to go and get a prescription of this, that. But training, and that is why I truly appreciate Red Door, because it's making an effort to actually return the act of healing to what is naturally available to all of us. I think all of us, if we connect with ourselves, if we use our agency, if we put down the load of professionalism, we will be able to do what you are saying. And then there are elders. Even in the therapeutic community, there are some brilliant elders who will tell you that talking helps, connecting helps, validation helps. Do you see? So it's actually quite simple, and we have made it into a buck-making industry. Sometimes, that's what I'm saying to you, classification systems can interrupt the telling of the story. Classification systems, like this is depression, this is this. It is helpful, but if you hang on to it too tightly, it will interrupt the telling of the story. Oh, she's depressed, and here's the prescription. But if somebody says to you, I'm depressed, and you proceed to inquire into the story, you might find something else. I can't see the slides again. How to use the classification system so that the story is heard. So use least restrictive categories. Use your categories for operational value, but you must, in your connection with the other, you must hold it lightly. So, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. This is the power of stories. So, I used to work in a psychiatric intensive care unit, and it was for men, and they were fairly angry men. And my office was at the end of the unit, and my office was, the door was always open, it was free for all to arrive. So one time I'm sitting there with my student, Gavin, and he's new, Gavin is new, and knocking on the door, patient friend puts his head in and says to Gavin, not to me, can I come in, Gov? Can I come in, Governor? Now, Gavin is my new student, and he's thinking, I have broken all barriers of therapy. I've made friendship with this man. He's coming in here to her office, and she's going to give me a telling off. Gavin didn't know my way of being a therapist. I didn't know that he was already a convert. So I sort of said, no, come in, blah, blah. He comes in, and he says to us, I need some solace. So we said, oh, okay, because we were, as usual, getting ready to do the therapy talk. He didn't want any therapy talk. He wanted some solace. So we just hung about. He sat on the chair opposite me, leaned his head towards my table, and promptly fell asleep. So Gavin and I got on with what we were doing. After about 20 minutes, he wakes up. So we turned around, again eager to therapize. And he says to us, I'm not human. So true to being a therapist, we say to him, no, don't say that. Of course you are human, meaning you are just like us. You know, you are human. And he says, no, I'm not human. You are human. So we say, how come? He says, you guys have lost your E. I am humane. You are human, so you have lost your E factor. So that was a turnaround for me, that I was saying he was actually judging me and telling me that you have lost your E factor through your professionalism. I'm just coming here for some solace. I'll sit with you, eat a biscuit, have a cup of tea, I'll write a poem, and I'll go. So that all drove it home for me, that story about human and humane. Let's have the next slide. I'm aware you might want to stretch and have some lunch, and I also want to leave some time for Q&A, so I'll do another. So this is what Rogers says, and I would like you to comment on whether this is possible. If I can create the proper climate, the proper relationship, the proper condition, a process of therapeutic movement almost inevitably occur in me and my client. Do you agree with it? Can you see something wrong with this statement? I can pass you the slides. Anybody who is taking photographs, please don't worry. Aparna will pass you the whole lot of slides. Anything wrong with this statement? Please. Wait for the mic.
Hi. So all this proper climate, proper relationship, proper conditions, proper everything is not human.
Thank you, you're after my heart. You're properly after my heart.
It's a business.
It is a prison.
To have a proper setting, professional statements, political relations, that's not therapy. That's business.
Thank you for that. Although I admire Rogers very much, in his days, in the 60s, 70s, he was, I suppose, talking about the humanist, isn't it? This is the humanist tradition. But there is problems with that. The politics of proper is not so straightforward. So thank you for that. Can I have the next one, please? Yeah. Can I be me in the relationship? Is it possible as a therapist to be genuine? I mean, forget therapist. Is it possible as a mother or a sister to be genuine towards the daughter-in-law, the daughter that you don't like, or even the son that you like so much? In human relationship, is it possible to be truly genuine? Truly, somebody mentioned earlier on about authentic relationship. What is an authentic relationship? Because in authentic relationship, there is healing. So how do we make authentic relationships possible? Any suggestion, please? Mic for this young lady. Where is the mic?
I don't have an answer to your question, but I think there's so much stress on being authentic that as a therapist, you're always questioning whether you would be judged for being authentic. If you
For not being authentic.
For not being authentic.
Yeah.
And also you're worried that you might upset the client.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So
what would you do in a situation like that if the person was not your client?
So are you asking me if it was a friend or
Yeah. Is the client not a friend? I'm just throwing it out.
Yeah, you put me under the bus now.
Yeah.
Patient friend. But, you know, like, we are always taught that your patient is not your friend. You always look at them from a very business client perspective. Like,
Very good. So now Mrs. Guha is my friend. She's been my friend since we were 8, 9. You are also my friend now, because I've just met you. What's your name?
Nikita.
Nikita. You are also a friend. But my friendship with Deepa will be very different to my friendship with you. Similarly, when I see the client for 3 sessions or 1 session, they are my friend, but they are not my friend that I will invite them home, give them a cup of tea. They are also in a relationship with me in a situation of power, where I have more power. So I must be aware of that. How can I hold this business of friendship in such a way so that I can remain genuine? I can remain curious. How can I rely on this patient friend to help me?
I think you have to start being authentic with yourself first.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Red door, you are on the go. Very good. That is it. And to be authentic with the self is really, what is it? Go back home to your grandma. Learn your Vipassana from your original Vipassana material. Please don't go to, Kabat-Zinn is great with his, it's beautiful. I have no qualms. But learn, you already know all this. You know what the mindfulness nowadays is doing mindfulness without the notion of dependent origination. We think compassion is a santra. You know santra? We call it humtira, orange. Compassion is not an orange. It has to be cultivated. In me, with the patient, through me. So there has to be a quality of connection that is curious, that is fearful, which is what you said. I'm always afraid that I might upset my best friend. I've been afraid all morning that I'm upsetting this poor lady. She's very busy, and I've brought her here. Do you see? But what will I do with that upset? What will I do with that upset? What will I do with the upset that I'm anticipating that my patient will feel? I often will name it, but I name it in such a way that I don't overwhelm the other. Very often in therapy, we don't name it, we don't question it, because we are afraid that we will expose our own absent abilities. Abilities don't have to be present. It will grow, but you have to be able to name your inabilities. You will have to be able to put it on the table. And that is why we say grandmother. Go back to your grandma. So this idea of compassion without humility, it is not possible. Humility is nowadays thrown about as if it is some textbook thing. It is to be cultivated. You have to carry it. It's very difficult to carry. Even I'm 60 now. I don't think 20%, if I'm humble, I think I will go straight to heaven. I'll be happy. I don't even think 3% humility I have. It's not something you can claim. You have to work with it all the time, and without that, there is no compassion. Then how will you do therapy? So it is also a therapeutic process for yourself. Seeing your patient friend. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is Rogers again, who is telling you, I would be willing for my client to see all the way through me, nothing hidden. What is wrong with this statement? I will be willing for my client to see all the way through me, nothing hidden. What's wrong with it? It's a beautiful statement, but what's wrong with it? Please, can I have something from this side? What's wrong with that statement?
Hello, ma'am.
I also don't do sign language, so I can't understand what the ladies are saying on this side. Okay, yeah.
May I?
She has a question. Close friends and
So when you have a really close friend and someone who's not that close, you have a very different mindset with both. Someone you're very close to, you talk a lot about things in your life, and you give everything of yours to them, and when they abandon you, you have nothing left, you don't know who to talk to. you go crazy thinking about what what you can share with people, because that person just goes away from your life. So I mean, what would you say? Like, what is the solution? You can't rely on one person always to share your things with. So what should you have in your life, to be able to share things with people in life?
I will, thank you for the question. I think I have that feeling all the time. It's a good question. I don't know if it's a good question, but it is the question to ask. And my grandmother gave me the answer to this from the Gathas of the Buddha, and it's called Atta Dipa Bhava, be your own light. Cultivate your own light. We are humans. This morning I'm watching all of you. It's a warm day reasonably. Everybody's here. Everybody's moving. We are all breathing. We've all decided what we want to wear in the morning. There's something agentic in all of us. We are smiling in a certain way to some people and in a different way to others. So it's amazing how we are as human beings. So I think the question there, if I cannot find a mirror that somebody else holds up to me, somebody else who loves me, I can't find that mirror to see myself there and say, this person loves me, what should I do? I always carry a mirror on my rucksack. I whip that one out. And that is Atta Dipa Bhava. This is not my prescription. This is the prescription from the days of the Buddha. Be your own light. But it's very difficult. Just like compassion is very difficult. It is possible. If there is anybody else who is 60 in here who has done a little bit of vipassana and thinking, will tell you it is possible. Without any shadow of the doubt. Find the right kind of elder to talk to. Right? It is possible. My own feelings will... Does that answer your question on that side? Thank you.
It does answer my question, but I have to take some time to think about, what's going on with myself. But for a deaf person, we think very differently. For a hearing person, you think very differently. So those are things that I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah, that's the hard work. That is the think work. When I say to you, you have to work hard, the lady there has actually given us a demonstration. I call it think work. You have to do your own thinking. And when you think, it's important to know that you are not doing your own thinking, you are collective. The thinking is coming from somewhere. Trace it. Just like when you lose your key, you go back to the rooms you've been to find it. Trace your thinking. Where is it coming from? Why is it coming to you? That is vipassana in a certain way, at a certain level. So it's a very good habit to cultivate.
She also raised this question earlier that as they are deaf people, so in terms of accessibility, how is therapy, what would you do in terms of accessibility? Because it's first not accessible, the therapy for deaf individuals, and also not entirely affordable. So this was one question that she raised earlier.
100%. This is what I mean, that therapy is an industry. It is our birthright to be able to have a healing conversation with somebody who is wise. You see, this is why I'm saying to you, returning therapy to your elders. It's our birthright to find a solution to find marham through talk. That's my birthright. I'm a human being. I'm not a textbook. So if you have sensory compromise, there will be a certain set of trouble. If you don't have sensory compromise and you have all sorts of defenses, you will have another set of troubles. How to overcome these troubles is I think the disability is in all of us. But I think when you have sensory difficulties, it is an additional set of hurdles in a world where talk is organized. Does that help? Yeah? So let us have this next slide, and let me try and round up so that you can ask a few questions. Let's finish that, we don't need that. So this is very important. When Freud talked, yes, please.
What is wrong with the statement that I will allow the client to see?
Very good, sir. Thank you. This is what I always, the word I. Who am I to allow the client? The client has to allow me in. If I go back, let's go back one slide, please. Thank you. उसकी बाद, इसकी पीछे वाली, हाँ. I will be willing. Who am I? Who am I? I will be willing. Man, the person is paying you, for God's sake. He's giving you a career. You know, I used to work again in the intensive care unit. I was 26 years old. I stayed there. I became head of service, blah, 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 blah. By the end of 10, 15 years, I had a house, I had a car, I had a PhD, I had this, I had that. The patients who kept coming back to see me, what did they have? They had metabolic disorder induced by their medication. They had lost families. They had lost connectivity. They had lost self-respect. They were big like this. They couldn't eat this. They couldn't eat that. And they were under the section legal, forced to be treated against their will. People could hold them down on the floor and inject them with stuff they didn't want. So, very careful when we use the word I. I am the one with all the privilege in the world. So, careful when I bring myself to the room where the patient is. So, if we can forward. If we can forward two more. Here, this one. Our personal feelings and responses are rooted in our personal stories. I've already told you that. Simply speaking, from the past, know your biases. This is the same issue. Knowing your biases, your preferences. Yeah? Let's have the next slide, and I will round up in a minute. Again, one more, please. One more. One more. This is one more. One more. So, central rules of a healing conversation. If I can leave you with some of my techniques, which I said I don't use in the first place. Do no harm to others. You know, and be careful. You may not even know that you are harming someone. You may think you are being compassionate. You are being boundaried. You may be harming someone. You may be in telling them that they have personality disorder, or in telling them that they are depressed, or have you tried this? You might be harming them. In interrupting the telling of their story, you might be shutting them, you might be silencing them. So this is a very big thing for all of you Red Door supporters. Do no harm and know where the harm happens. Do no harm to self. So no harm to others, no harm to self. Work with yourself. You know this is a bit cliched, a bit cheesy. Put your own oxygen mask on first. All right? Let us see what else we have. I actually like this very much. It is immediately evident to us that cordial, harmonious relationships with others are a necessary condition for our own genuine happiness. Not only do such relations allow us to pursue undisturbed the goals we consider essential to personal fulfillment, but they bring us the deeper joy of meaningful communion with our fellow beings. I think the happy person is the most selfish person. You know, if you are truly selfish, you will submit your life to others because you will know what joy is. Sometimes I glimpse it at my age now. Sometimes, and then I lose it very quickly. I just walk to Anoki and I lose it like that. Or I go to the lipstick counter and I lose it. But that is something we need to work with. Joy. It is, they didn't tell us for nothing. Service to others is service to God. I'm not very godly, but I think that works. As you move through this world, filled with others, you meet them with kindness and understanding. That is, I think you have mentioned that earlier on, Nikita, that, how do I do this? How can I be authentic? Ask yourself, am I authentic really? Especially when you don't like someone. You are double authentic. So I will stop there, although I have a lot more in the slide, but I think it is much more important that you have 10 more minutes. If you want to ask any questions, I'm very happy to take. I try my best. Who has the mic? There's 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, 4 person, 5 person, 6, 7, half a dozen. Come on, let's go.
Hello, ma'am. Really admire your talk, ma'am. I've also started crushing over your white hair.
मुझे सुनाई नहीं दे रहा.
Hello, ma'am.
हाँ बताओ.
Now
नमस्ते,
audible?
नमस्ते.
Namaste, namaste. See, I have a very small but yet deep question. I oftentimes struggle with therapy is fine, but it really essentially it helps you to talk it out, right? And you're able to get relief also, but that's very momentary. That helps for a very short time. So how does one deal with clients and make them realize that this will only help you for a very short time, and there's something more to it which you should be looking for? Because I personally have had so many therapy sessions where we've had the opportunity to talk things out, and I've been to so many experiences of such kind. So this is what I've really struggled with personally.
Thank you. Short time.
Yeah.
अब देखो, मैंने ऑमलेट वाली बात कहा आपको. तब मेरी एज थी 26. अभी मेरी उम्र हो गई 60. I'm still using that story to feel strong every time I fall down. I go and make an omelette. So don't underestimate कि इतनी कम टाइम में मैं इसके साथ बात की, ये इधर ही खत्म हो गई. नहीं. Whatever you do, you are starting. Maybe we can use neural pathways. People will remember what you said. People will remember the respect you gave them. People will remember the love you have offered. People will remember the mirror that you showed them about their own ability and beauty. So don't be afraid of short time. सारे के तो सारे short time है. Use the time well. Never mind long or short. Use it well for yourself. Use it well for the other. Did I answer your question?
But I think, as in I've had some people coming to me and telling me that they very often dial up some mental helpline numbers. They found it online, and they just keep talking. There's nothing change they're seeing.
That is true, because then
this goes on.
If you don't do your think work, if it's become an addiction now, like eating ice cream.
Comfort space. Yeah.
अच्छी लगती है, खा लेती हूँ. खाने के बाद फिर से मन करता है कि आइसक्रीम खाऊं. Its therapy is not like that. You will have to do the work. It has become a distraction. It's hard work, and you can do it, but you'll have to work. If you keep doing technology, then you will keep returning to, yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? Young lady.
So, ma'am, my question is from a very therapist point of view. So, what you mentioned that who am I and about authenticity and about the genuineness. So, I feel, personal opinion, that sometimes as therapists, we are made to feel very important, or sometimes we give ourselves way too much importance and we forget that the space is all about our client, or as you said, patient friend, right? So, I just want your 2 bits on this, that how, when we are working with any sort of a client or a patient, no matter what age group, how do we sometimes take away that doctor fix-it kind of a fixation in our head that, oh, we have to help the person. So how have you dealt with it? Because at times it comes back to us.
I never took technique seriously. I think I probably had a disability. That's why I lasted this long in the therapy world. I just could not take technology of therapy seriously. Your first part of your question was that they put you on the pedestal and the space is there. Usi mein hi contradiction hai. The space is not theirs. The space is yours and theirs. The space is hum, not tu or me, not up or me. The space is ours. So try and swim in that, you know. It takes practice. It took me many years. Actually, it didn't take me that many years because I had my grandmother in my head. You know, I didn't care about, you can always break rules which are secondary rules. They are telling us you have to have boundaries. Of course you have to have boundaries. I have boundaries with this young friend here just now. I have boundaries here, I won't fall. But there's no problem with the idea of boundary, but how do you use it? If you use it only to your advantage, it doesn't help anybody. So when people put you on the pedestal, come down and don't put them on the pedestal either. Baat karo na, you know, you just talk. Listen, look. I always look at people's faces and I sometimes find myself commenting, or maybe I sit in such a way that I'm open to people telling me, oh, Dr. M, you've stopped coloring your hair, and then we have a chat about hair, we don't talk therapy. Usi ki beach mein we have marham. You know, very often I go, because I work in the inpatient setting, it's difficult to sit down. That's why maybe I learned these questions were answered for me through that kind of unconventional work. Yeah. I can't. Marham. Did I say marham? I'm showing off now. You know, beach mein, you know, it is like that.
So now I have one, which is when you wrote like don't do self-harm, right? On a subtle level, every negative thought is an act of self-harm. And over the time, our behavior patterns, they become very, very concrete. And, you know, and breaking this pattern, because in a day we do it, I don't know, like countless times when we talk to ourselves. So is there any basic tool which maybe I can use, every after 2 hours I can just use that one thing which is going to help me break this?
आप 4 noble truths पढ़ लो, vipassana practice करो, think work. Don't do mindfulness as in exported mindfulness. You know, connect to your own knowledge. You have the collective knowledge. You are born and brought up in this country, you know. You just connect. It's not so easy, huh? I'm not just exoticizing the Orient. It's maybe both gandagi is there. But what I'm saying, your question is a very good question. Connect to that question. When you said we have negative thoughts, welcome them. Welcome them. Open them. Look at them. Where are they coming from? Oh, you will see then where they are coming from. Understand them. My teacher, he is a Buddhist monk. He's in his 90s now, I think. He always says to me, don't throw away the negative. Bring it. That is you. It's okay. That is what will have the corridor to. Elephants do that, isn't it? Watering hole, there is elephant corridors. You know, don't be afraid of negative. And patience, 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 patience. We have 5 minutes.
You just gave me a comment that I have your heart. I think I'll give that back to you.
Thank you. I receive it.
You really have my heart, because as I aspire to be in mental health, not industry. And I don't connect to the definitions they tell me. I don't connect to the techniques they teach me. I don't connect to anybody that's in the field, but I connect it to you. So I want to ask you, who would you say is a therapist? Who is a therapist to you? Because sometimes I am the grandpa or the grandmother of my group. People call me mother duck. Is therapist a person that asks you to go make an omelette? I want to know it from you. Who would you call a therapist?
Anybody who makes me feel better. It could be the rickshawala who noticed my face. When he went uphill, I got off. I said to him, "Bhai, mujhe utarna do." Main utari. Fir he took the rickshaw up. When we got to the end, he gave me a look. You know, I thought I wasn't doing him a favor. He could have just ignored it. He received it. He was my therapist at that moment. He gave me my respect for myself and life. You know? So if you need my email, my Hotmail email is with Aparna. All Red Door people are most welcome. I do all sorts of supervision, Zoom this, Zoom that. I'm becoming an expert. So feel free to contact me if you think I can help you in any way. Yes.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
happy to be your grandmother.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
One last question.
Yeah.
Can I take one last? One last. One last question. Who?
Is on?
Microphone?
Here, I'm here.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question. We are talking of a therapeutic environment. So, is some kind of codependence and transference a natural part of the counseling process? Because usually we are told that we go with the idea, don't get into codependence, don't get into transference. But I just want your views on this.
Are we not dependent on our patient? We make them come to us every day and take 80 pounds, 110 pounds an hour, huh? I do everything I can not to lose them. Is that not dependency? What they are saying to you is, don't let them become dependent on you. They might chase you, they might stalk you, they might wait under your... Manage that. That can happen. Doesn't always happen. Rarely it can happen. I always believe in the good intention of the other. But I also do protect myself.
Okay, one more question. How okay is it to, supposing I am doing, somebody's come to me for marriage counseling, just a client offhand, and he or she asks me, are you married? How much is it okay to divulge some kind of, or are you a parent?
I'll sit here all day giving an answer to that question. What I do is, every day it differs.
Okay.
I sometimes will say, you are interested in my marriage? Or sometimes I said, oh, I've been married before. Depends on my mood. But I never tell them the details of why my two marriages did not work. Sometimes I do tell a young girl looking for empowerment that I was dark when I was born in Assam and I was plain-faced. My sisters are stunningly beautiful women. So my elders used to say, grandmothers including, don't let her go out in the sun. She doesn't have good features and she'll get dark. She will not find any husbands. I found two and I left them both. So this story I do tell them. This story I do tell them. I'll take one last question and that's it. Because somebody here wanted to ask a question.
I'm audible? Yeah. So I just want to ask, because as a neurodivergent person, because I have ADHD, when I go to therapy, or I didn't get the diagnosis immediately because I went to a behavioral therapist and she didn't diagnose me. But then when I got diagnosed, it became much easier for me to just manage my ADHD, and because I have it became very easy. So when you're saying don't diagnose or get into the talking stage first, I think if I would have gotten to know I had ADHD earlier in my life, it would have been easier for me to manage.
You are 100% right. I have not said don't diagnose. I've said hold diagnosis with care. Huh? Okay. Hold diagnosis with care. Of course, it has operational value. Thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you.